What is going on, YouTube world? He's Steve. I'm Dave. This is the Insert Revolution podcast. Episode, I think, number 11. Already on number 11. That
crazy. Feels like we just started this yesterday.
I know. That's good and bad. That's our sponsor to Bud Light. Also, I don't know if I'll eat any, but
Reese's you suck. I love Reese's.
I may have a bag or 7. Those are so much better than the regular, just because I feel there's more of the peanut buttery centering or the filling. But right now, dealing with a cold, so those are really, they look good, but I'm like, I don't want to have to be laughing. Those stay out to the side. I've got my nice soothing, the low acid. Don't like that reflux. Yeah, so that's good for that.
So Dave, can I put in a special request? Isn't that the truth? I wasn't gonna say that, but I figured somebody else would catch it. So whenever you get around to sending the few cards that I know about, can you include one of those bags in there?
Yeah.
The Reese's.
Oh, this guy, Manny.
What's going on, Manny?
I know I jumped in one of his, I think, PSA reveals, and he's like, I gotta check you guys out live. I'm like, oh.
Manny, you're probably gonna walk away disappointed. I do check out the reveal videos quite a bit. I miss the old All-Star Jersey Shop YouTube channel, though, I'm just gonna say. But one of these days, I'm going to have to jump in on a submission. I've been debating that for a long time. But, out of everybody, there's a lot of good guys out there that do it. But you're old school, man. So I got to support the old school crew.
Yeah, and from what I remember, his prices are fairly solid. It's not like you're jacking everybody up and whatnot. And even if you want your stuff cleaned or fancied up, I don't know if that's still a thing, but he's one of the best, I think, in the biz. And again, a guy that's been around forever and a day, not just a Johnny come lately.
No, absolutely. So anyway, Dave and I can convince you to recreate the old All-Star Jersey Shop, just make a video, please.
I like the green screen. I know that stuff, the editing was more tedious. Takes obviously more time, but whenever I saw like a 10, 15-minute video from him come up, I'm like, oh, good. This will be time well spent.
Yeah, unlike ours, that's just like, Yeah, there's no editing, there's no graphics, there's nothing.
There's no pomp and circumstance or thrills, or you're getting.
Yeah, well, the only time I did that was the last attempt of the Terrelldavis PC showcase from the house. And it was just the patches and the autos. And after I got like the 1 strike or whatever for copyright, I made it private. So I still have it. It's not like I deleted it. I mean, it's still there. But the one time I try and do something, out of the ordinary, something special or whatever to commemorate something that I thought was, a pretty big deal from my collection standpoint, it gets flagged for copyright, even though I thought I put the right information in the description to give the credit and everything else. it was like, what the hell? So I stopped even trying.
Yeah, and trying to do that from a phone. I've thought about doing some overlaying of like the old NFL primetime music over like some of the insert things, just doing like a slideshow. But again, trying to do that from a phone and being very technologically inept in that sense, it's just like, you know what, if I had a desktop or a laptop or something like that, or Chromebook or whatever, yeah, I'd start looking a little more into that. But I wouldn't have it just be like the super flashy intro and it's just us like we usually are. I mean,
Right.
you have to get more lighting and all that stuff. That's just something I'm probably never ever gonna do because I don't. Not that I don't care about how we look. I think we look adequate for what we are. But I mean, I don't need to have an in studio situation where it's like Matt Lauer or whatever interviewing somebody and all the lights, the screens around you to keep reflectivity down or whatever. Really irrelevant.
No, I like the all natural type setup. You know, I appreciate the editing and stuff that a lot of people do. I mean, I think it's great. I think it's an added touch. It adds additional substance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those in which I don't want to say that I don't appreciate it or I don't enjoy it. It's just one of those in which I'm like you. I'm not. It's not that I'm not technology savvy. I can figure stuff out. I don't want to put forth the time, I guess. And I know that sounds really bad because, you know, to a certain degree, the whole objective uh, to making videos is to bring viewers, is to, you know, bring views and subscribers and everything else. But at the same time, it's not as important to me, I guess. I know the people that I'm close enough with will always find time to watch a video.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they don't have to thumbs it up. They don't have to make a comment. But I know that if I post a video, those small handful of people I know are always going to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to grow my channel. That's not my objective. And that's the thing. If it's an enjoyment, if it is truly still a hobby, and you know, from your perspective, Manny, I would venture to say that you still have a very substantial passion with all of this, so you enjoy it. So it's fun. It's not like you're doing it because you feel like you have to. You're doing it because you truly do enjoy it, and that's usually when you can tell, because you can usually see some of that come out in videos and the way that a person talks and, you know, the reflections in their voice, the smiles, the giggles, the laughs, those, you know, they're doing it because they still enjoy it. It's not a job for them. It's all in the fun. So
Yeah, when you sit there and you are putting off making a video, or you get anxious, like, man, I really don't want to make one, but I feel I have to. That's when maybe the burnout part starts coming in. You're just like, I gotta refocus, or I just have to step back and not have such a big footprint. Which again, some people, either because of their own ego or just because of the people, I won't say they're stringing along, but they're the people that truly enjoy their videos and the stuff they're putting out, feel like they need to put it out. I'd rather have somebody say, hey man, instead of making this fluffy type videos with graphics and background music and whatever, I'm going to take a break, or I'm just going to be, instead of making like 4 videos every week, I'm going to make one every couple weeks. But in that regard too, you can sit there and say, well, hey, I could sort of plan for this video instead of feeling forced to make a video and really have it, I won't say as deep, but at the same time, you're just pretty much glossing over stuff just to put out a video, which I'm
Right.
like Brad, 8671. He'll put out videos, but it won't be like, oh, here's one pickup and then talk, which I like listening to him talk. I like his thoughts on like the NFL and the NHL when he's talking about the Blue Jackets. But he'll put together like, well, here's like a week's worth or 2 weeks worth of mail.
Right.
And I'll talk and I'll have a 20, 25-minute video. Personally, I like that because that's more, it's not digestible, but that's what I enjoy more than like a 5-minute video to show, here's a card. Hope you're all
Here's a
doing well
card.
later. So,
Well, and that's me. You know, I try and wait for stuff. I mean, it's unless it's something like really, really big, which of course doesn't happen much these days. I may devote a video to one card, but at the same time, I could still usually draw it out for 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, depending on the situation. The biggest challenge for me, and pickups have been minuscule as of late. You and I, every week, you always ask, have I picked anything up? Well, I've won a few things. 2 things coming in from Germany. It's probably going to take sometime in the middle of November, I think, is when they're scheduled to get here. I did win something earlier today that Dave knows about. We'll see. I sent the seller a message trying to get some clarification, and I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to take a chance, so I bought it. I won another thing earlier this afternoon, which I pretty much stole. I think I'm not spoiling it, Dave, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I've got TNT stuff, coming up here before too long. Small handful of stuff that I'm really going to go a little bit harder after. But I'll wait for a lot of that stuff to kind of build up. But on the flip side, making the PC showcase videos, I try and make sure that I'm here by myself. And that doesn't happen every weekend or sometime throughout the week or whatnot. But for 97, for instance, it was 38 minutes, I think. 98 probably going to be closer to 40 minutes because I want to say 25, 27 more cards to go through type situation. 99 is going to be well over an hour. 2000 will probably be close to an hour. 2001. And then as it gets later on, they'll start dwindling a little bit because the card counts start going down. And it's hard to devote 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and making sure you're going through, because the whole purpose of doing a PC showcase is to show everything, is to let people see what you have. And I've never done a complete showcase ever. So this is even something that I can go back through and watch and see, what changes I've been able to make going into 2021 and into the future type situation. So devoting that amount of time to sit down and make a video is a challenge. Because like I said, I need to be here by myself. And that's the only way that I can ensure that I can get it done. Plus, I'm trying to, navigate my spreadsheet because, although years ago I could have rattled off 95% of the set names and everything else, not so much. It sucks getting old. It happens. And I want to make sure that I'm not misspeaking when I rattle off a card. Not that 15 million people are going to go run off and say, okay, I know what Steven has now. Now I can go find, X, Y, and Z. That's not what I'm getting at. But I want to make sure that I'm saying the right name as it's listed from a Beckett perspective, because if somebody sees a card, it's an insert or parallel from a base card type situation. If they want to go look up their player, their team, whatever, I want to make sure that they have the information and it's good information. And that's why there's times at which you'll see me kind of correcting myself in the showcase videos, because either I've flip-flopped a word or I've misspoke or, anything, something along those lines. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm giving everything that I can as it pertains to that showcase collection. So.
Yeah. And now I'm not going to say there's more pressure on us with this going on than our podcast. What's up, Ty?
Go on, Ty.
But at the same time, you become more cognizant of I should probably, when I'm speaking, know what I'm speaking about, because we're always talking about be sort of knowledgeable about what you're purchasing, instead of, well, here's this card. Well, it's a Mike Allstott. It's a base score card. Look at the base score. It's nice. Well, no, that's an artist proof note. So
exactly. But on the flip side, though, Dave, we're also not sitting there claiming to be the know-alls or the end-all, be-all type situation. I mean, we set that precedent early on. And, like I said, at one point, I felt really good, and I knew a lot of the cards. I knew the subsets. I knew the nomenclature. I knew the parallel variations and things along those lines. But, it's one of those in which, and we'll touch on this throughout the podcast from a burnout perspective. I never got burnt out, but I did take hiatuses. And when you start taking hiatuses, you have a tendency to start forgetting some of the legacy knowledge that you once had. Mm-hmm. The flagship sets and things along those lines, your tops chrome, some of those that will always kind of be in the forefront of your mind. Those are hard to forget. But some of the other ones, because, Collector's Edge, for instance, has 15.375 million different sets and subsets and variants and inserts and parallel inserts. I couldn't tell you how long it took me when I finally was able, and I mentioned this on the Super Collectors podcast that you were on. I'd put it in the chat. It took me weeks to get my collection in order. And I spent more time trying to figure out, yes, he does, to figure out the freaking Collector's Edge shit. I had to go and do, ComC searches so I could see pictures, eBay searches, and I'm like, okay, there's definitely something different about this. And you flip it over and you look, and it's like, okay, it's not like it catches your eye. But then when you finally find it and you look and you're going, are you fucking kidding me? Was it really that straightforward and I just missed it, or I wasn't paying attention? But a lot of stuff from the 90s, there's just a small differentiation on certain things that dictate whether or not it's a parallel. Not everything has a certain designator. For instance, contenders leather, for instance, pretty sure 96. You have contenders leather, which is just a normal card, has the leather feel to it or whatever, and then you have the leather accents. Well, guess what? The front of the card looks exactly the freaking same. The only difference is you flip it over, one of them says accents, the other one doesn't. There is nothing else that's different about it. That is the only differentiation.
Yeah, and when
it boggles my mind sometimes.
A lot of those Collector's Edge, especially like 95, if you collect a player and they've got I can't think of the parallel or the insert, but it's that green one where it's sort of prismy. But then you've got like the 22 karat gold. You've got the black, I think a black label or something, a die cut. You have 4 or 5 different parallels, and 94 is even worse with the
Yeah, I don't have
acetate
to
color.
worry. I don't have to worry about 94.
I'm just saying, if you're like an Emmett Smith collector, you've got about 8 to 10 parallels of one insert card, and basically all of them, except with the exception of maybe one, they're probably all about the same going rate.
Right.
And it's
and that, Manny, that's an accurate statement too. Your later so some of your early years and then some of your later years, depending on like the base design, the base background design, or the border design, color, I should say. There, I can go back when doing my collection sorting. Thinking that I had something, and then I'm going through and looking through stuff, and all of a sudden it's like, well, shit, I guess I don't have it. So I would put all my dupes aside and everything else, and then every once in a while, doing some reshifting, some reorganization, and I look through some of those, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's a fucking refractor. Okay, now let me go check my checklist. Let me go, and it's like, oh crap, oops. Yeah, let me add that one to the collection. Let me mark it off the list. So yeah, that is definitely a fair assessment. Yeah, they didn't all do that though either, which was unfortunate. At least Topps Finest did really good with that. Bowman's Best was also one that did it. Topps Chrome didn't do it until later years though.
No.
I think 97 was it 97 the first year that they actually. I can't remember.
Do a COMC search of like, let's look up Freddie Taylor and who was it, Tony Gonzalez, or we can't find them, we'll have to look for just Topps Chrome refractors. Because yeah, when it listed refractor, I was able to get some trades because I mean, like way back when that stuff came out, because people didn't know what refractors were. And it's just like, if somebody thought that, I remember buying 93, 94 Finest basketball. I bought, I don't know, 4 or 5 packs way back in its initial drop date. And then I had a buddy when I moved back up to Ely who thought, I don't remember the parallel, but it's got like the bricks in the background. It's like the all-star, sort of like the subset or whatever within the 93, 94 Finest for basketball. He thought that was a refractor. And I'm like, no, that's not the refractor. The refractor, you can tell because you pull it to the light and the light dances on the card. It looks like a rainbow. So, that's a refractor. Like, it isn't. That's not the refractor. Again, I'm trying to tell you at 14 or 15 what the refractor was, but they just went buying into it. And, okay. And then I think finally they had another pack and they got like a Derek McKee or somebody refractor. Like, oh, that looks different. I'm like, that's because it's a refractor. So yeah, the knowledge, it's tough, especially when you get like the technology that we had to deal with coming out, because you were pretty much, hey, it's a base card. If it was some insert, it was usually like just said like hot rookie on it or something like that. It wasn't boiled up and die cut and acetate. We were trying to go back then where people now say, oh man, it's difficult trying to navigate the waters of figuring out the cards. Try going back when there was just basically paper stock or cardboard stock, and then you're going to die cuts and acetate and technology type cards where you're just like, it's like you've opened up Pandora's box, or you opened up like the Lion Tamer's circle where all the doors are at, and you go in there and you're like, what the hell do I do? And you pull open every door, and it's a new technology for a card. So yeah, it was tough back then to try to actually discern what was what. And
yeah, it's almost
ripped off.
I almost want to say it's to a degree it's comparable to like the major influx of the variations. The short print variations that almost every set these days seems to have. unless you do your research and things along those lines, you're not going to know if you have, the whole SP variation type setup unless you start doing searches and, like I said, do your research. So trying to navigate, like you alluded to with the varying technologies from the 90s perspective, it's one slight change to a card could dictate the rarity or if it's a parallel or things along those lines. And unless you knew those little nuances, there was always the possibility that you could be sitting on something that was, substantially rare without realizing it and run the risk of, selling it for pennies on the dollar because you didn't know about it. And that's, like I said, it's almost like comparing apples to oranges, but at the same time, it's almost the same type of situation when you're talking about all the SP variations that you're seeing in Topps and Topps Chrome and things along those lines. So it's the only way I can compare the two.
Like that, if you pulled that out of a pack, you're just like, oh, it's gold foil on it, whatever.
First day issue, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like a super tough card by any sense of the imagination. Or this Pacific, again, was another one that you had no clue. You had zero clue about it, especially when they 96, not so much, but like 97 is when they really start pumping out the coloring.
Yep.
So like you could be sitting on a red that because again, you're looking at the foil like, well, it's different, but you don't know. Okay, platinum blues are either one a box or one every two boxes, or a little over the 1 in 37 and 73.
Or is it because it's part of the base set, but it's later on in the series or in the checklist, or it's earlier in the checklist? Kind of like with Black Diamond. When you started getting into the double, triples, quads, and then the horizontal premium cut, those pack pull ratios were dictated by a class of players. So if, let's say, and usually your top tier guys were in the most hardest tier, they could be 1 in 6,821 packs, and I'm just spitballing numbers. That I'm just grasping stuff out of the air. And you pull one, but you don't think that maybe that person is in that tier. You could potentially, like I said, let it go for pennies on the dollar or trade it to somebody who knows what the hell it is, and you could be missing out. I mean, you would hope that if you're trading cards with people, you're doing it with individuals that you trust and that aren't going to ultimately take advantage of you. And then, it's for another example, for instance, so 2000, I know it's later on, but 2006 Topps Chrome.
Mm-hmm.
First year, not the first year, but I consider it the first main Topps Chrome release where all the rookies, all the big name rookies had rookie autographs. So 2006 Topps Chrome had 50. You can go back to 2005. You can go back to 2004. Yes, there were autographs. 2005, I know for sure. 2004 didn't, if memory serves me right. 2005, I know they did. They were in the box toppers.
Mm-hmm.
But 2006, 50 rookie autographs, but they were tiered. You had your A, which was, your Reggie Bush, your Vince Young, your Matt Leinart, those type of guys were, 1 in, I don't know. You weren't even guaranteed 1 a case type situation. They were tough. I just got lucky in the 10 boxes that I purchased. I think I got 3 tier A guys in the 10 boxes that I bought. So,
Yeah.
and pulling Reggie Bush, that was like, yeah, I think I may be able to do this.
You mentioned the Black Diamond. I had the the hockey Beckett. Started when I was leafing through it quickly before my marathon of tours last week of being online. But like the 97, 98 Black Diamond, premium cut, quad diamond, horizontal. Let's say 10 or 15 good numbers, or 1 in 30. Then you had another like 8 that were 1 in 90. Then you had, I think, 6 more? I think that was the Brodeur one I had mentioned to and I alluded to in Carlos' show. It's like 1 in 2,000. Exactly.
Now, and I don't remember the tiers for him. He wasn't in the top tier. But, this is a tough card. Because it wasn't the top tier, but he was on the tier down.
Yep.
But extremely super tough. And I don't even remember what the hell I paid for that one, to be brutally honest.
And that's another thing too, that this looks like a regular insert. There's nothing super flashy. There's not like that, like where Black Diamond a couple years later would have like the rainbow holographic foil on there, and you'd be like, oh, okay, that looks a little more enticing or different. What is that? I'm gonna check the Brodeur. Yeah, 24. So the Brodeur odds are 1 in 2,000. Then you had 1 in 15,000, and that was Brendan Shanahan and Lindros. And then the ones where we alluded to were Waugh and Gretzky were 1 in 30,000. So
that's why we do this. That whole thing right there, I mean, that's the reason why. That's what sparked this. And although we don't always show cards, every once in a while we do. We show off some modern stuff. I mean, last episode, I'm pretty sure last episode I did, show this off. But, at the same time, this is just a badass card.
Mm-hmm.
Black Finites are gorgeous. I mean, they are. And I don't want to take away from some of the beauty and the rarity of some of the newer stuff. But that's, that really isn't my focus. And only till recently, and, I'll give Dave and Carlos a few props with this. I started really thinking more about limiting the focus. No. We won't go there. Limiting the focus. So, I took the next step. I updated my spreadsheet as far as my totals and stuff are concerned. And I set 2014 as, kind of like, that's my focal point. 95 to 2014. Why 2014, you ask? I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a shit ton of cards from 2014 and 2015 didn't look as good. So that's where I put the cutoff point. And then I took it a step further. I was like, there's been talks about, why don't you focus on playing years? Okay. So I created another tab of my just endless spreadsheet, of course. And I did just playing years. Pre-95, granted there's only, 2 cards, through 2001. And I was like, well, shit. 95 through 2014, I'm sitting on like 54% owned, obtainable. Playing years, I'm sitting at 58%. There's only a 4% difference between playing years and through 2014. Screw it. I'm going to stick through 2014. I like the percentage of where I'm at. Still going to keep plugging away, which I've been able to do at least over these past couple days and then last week. So it's one of those that. So see, there you go, 2015. And I thought about 2015 because I was trying to think, even from when I was heavily active in YouTube and stuff. 2011, I got a lot of stuff. 2012, I got a lot of stuff. 2013, I knew I got a lot of stuff. 2014, I had picked up a lot of stuff. And early on in 2015, I felt that I was still going after some high dollar cards. But it's almost like I started kind of pricing myself out to a certain degree because I'm like, I can't keep picking up all this new shit all the time and then forgetting about all the other stuff. And, granted, I've always had my checklist, I've always had my list, but I've missed out on opportunities to close off gaps in the earlier stuff that, my prime years of collecting, beautiful technology, beautiful card designs, that type of stuff, because I was focusing on getting newer stuff. So, and that's I guess that's kind of why it was like 2015 started coming out with more and more products too. And then you started seeing more the following year, 2016. They started ramping up the numbers. I mean, as of right now, I think in 2020, he's sitting right up under 300 cards already. It's like, son of a bitch. I appreciate them continuing to put him in products. It's great. But I have a finite amount of capital in order to be able to do this. The only way that I could, afford to consistently stay on top of all the new stuff is start going through and selling, my sets and stuff along those lines. And I don't want to do that. To me, it's not worth it to me right now. Mm-hmm. There's money there. There's quite a bit of money there, but it's not worth it to me.
Yeah, with me, it's just dollar amount. Would I love to pick up like the Cup Brodeur shit? Oh fuck, I would. The SP Game Used, SP Authentic, the Cup, all that stuff. Even like the trilogy has a lot of nice stuff in it from like the mid 2000s to like the late 2000s. At the same time, if I start snagging those, because I watched was it 04, 05, no, 05, 06, I think. No, 03, 04. Still in the confines of what I wanted to pick up. But it was a Jaguar Wah Brodeur triple auto to 25. On card is like out of the SP Authentic, like the sign of the times triple. And so I'm like, oh, I just want to see where this goes. I put like a $50 bid, and that'll be my bookmark on that. Thing went for I think like 185, 190. Now again, I am still more than comfortable enough to say I don't know if that was a great deal or if that was overpriced, because I know Watt and I know Brodeur have had amazing careers, top 5 goalies of all time, Toshik and Vezina. Brodeur had a nice run with the Ducks in the mid 2000s when they were making all their noise in the Western Conference, either the finals or in the Stanley Cup. But
take it easy, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Dave.
Well, that's all right.
Thanks for stopping in, man. It's good to chat with you. Yeah. Hope we get to see you a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, talk about Pau Gasol. That you sit there and you think, and again, goes back to making your decisions of what you want to pick up. Yeah, I could pick up that card, probably pay close to $200 after tax and whatever. Or do I pick up 6 cards that I really like as well and still have money to spare. It's with most of us in the hobby that are actually true hobbyists, we're looking for the best bang for our buck. And
sorry, Dave.
well, then we should have our most viewers on the show. Then that'll be the. We keep seeing the microphone off. That'll be the draw of where people are in, like the screenshot of us like going talking in the show. It'll show like the microphone, like the lines through it. Like, oh shit! I gotta tune in. Dave's not talking.
It's only because I've been doing most of the talking already, and that's unusual.
Well, that's all right. I mean, but yeah, it's like we all have a finite amount of funds, and we have to make purchases, or when we do make purchases, we have to factor in a lot of variables and a lot of just consequences, as it were. Just because you don't want to sit there and I'll get that card, then like a different brochure shows up. I got to get that. That's like $70. I got to get that one. That's $60. Well, now it's like, holy Christ! I got like $600 in invoices to pay. It's like, no, you can't be card poor. Most of us have to either have the list, or you are just going off of like aesthetic appeal to yourself, which we've mentioned before.
It's finding that happy medium. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And I'm thankful, but I'm also pissed at myself. I still haven't picked up that one card. You know which card I'm talking about. It's still out there. But I'm glad I haven't done something with it, because then I wouldn't have been able to get the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And although the one is super rare, the other one I'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those in which it's finding that happy medium. And I'm not kicking myself in the ass by any stretch of the imagination for not pulling the trigger on the one yet. But it's things happen for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that. And now I'm carrying on conversations with a person from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to know for sure where that's going to lead. She says over 1,000 cards still left. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty substantial amount of cards from 95 to 2004. My guess is 95 and 96 probably the possibility fairly limited to fill some gaps. But 98 through 2004, there's always that possibility. And this individual doesn't list shit for 99 cents and let it ride. I mean, mm-hmm. This individual has a set price in mind per card that they list, and that's fine too. But at the same time, knowing that through like 2004, he's got 4,100 cards, 4,200 cards, give or take, 43 maybe, somewhere in that vicinity. I'm sitting at over 2,000 total for the entire collection. Mm-hmm. For those years, I'm probably sitting at 18 something. I could probably pull up my checklist, but that would take effort, and I don't feel like looking. It's one of those in which it's hard to know what holes could potentially be filled. This person has listed quite a few cards. that I don't have. I've been very selective of cards that I've purchased. I've purchased 2. I think some of the prices on some of the other ones, their starting bid, I think is a little too high. That's my opinion. I have my set figure in mind, and it's one of those that it'd be cool to have, but it's numbered to 625. That's not worth $6 to me. That's not super rare. Yes, it's 2002, 2001, that time span, but that's not super rare. That's not $6 to me. I would rather find and take a risk and put that $6 on, something else or towards something else in the event that I win it. There's always the possibility I won't. But that's the stuff that's constantly going through my head on some of those cards. And if nobody ends up winning them, since the individual has the want list, maybe she won't relist them in the short term as she's looking through things and stuff along those lines. And maybe they'll end up in the collection anyways. But, she pretty much told me, she's like, it's going to take me a few weeks. I said, no, I understand. Although I have over 2,000 cards, he's got, 50, 58, give or take, spanning through 2020. Yep. I want an idea tomorrow. I want you to look through those 1,000 cards, and I want an answer tomorrow. No, look how long it took me to make the deal with the one guy. Yeah. It took me damn near a month to finalize that one. So.
Or even Michael, this film not yet rated, for the Clay Matthews that he really wanted in a deal too with a former collector. And that's Clay. I have no idea how many cards he's got. But being a defender, it's going to be significantly less than offensive juggernaut like Terrelldavis was. But yeah, it's time, it's communication, it's effort, and it's just having some sort of knowledge with what you've got. Because you can't be like, hey, whatever you got from 97 to 2001, let me know what you have. Well, Christ, that's a ton of cards. So by you saying, well, here's my Excel spreadsheet deal for my want list, you could say, hey, the ones in blue or the ones in yellow, whatever it is, I need those ones. That way it can be like, if she's got the stuff in order, okay, here's black diamond, triple diamond. Okay, I've got that. He needs it. Put that out and do it that way instead of just sort of throwing a blanket statement over everything.
Yeah.
I need that. I need these years. I'm really collecting these years. It's like, well, that's a lot of cards without much.
So here's an idea. So 3178 is the total cards from 95 to 2004. Obtainable totals 3,062 is the obtainable totals. My obtainable needs through 2004 is 1,322. That's a shit ton of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And the chances of being able to fill 500 of those, I venture to say, is very slim to none, because, I look at the guy that, took a month to build that deal. He had over 2,000 cards. 2,500 cards, I think, is what it was. And I focused on base inserts, parallels. I took out the autos and everything else because he had, I think, 10 or so autos that I didn't have. But I knew that would increase the price. And, at the same time, I wanted to be able to potentially get a deal done. And of those, like 2,000 or 2,500 cards that he had, by looking through my want list, I mean, I what did I get, Dave? 180 something, I think.
It's like, but yeah, between like 170 and 185, because I think there was some dupes there, something. You had a couple of like the what, 95
Yeah, yeah, because I put
ones were rookies, I
the
believe.
stipulation out there. I was like one of each rookie because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to call out specifically the 95 collectors, the collector's choice gold,
Mm-hmm.
because those had been selling uh, for a fairly high amount, graded and ungraded. So I put the blanket statement, one of each rookie, and took a chance that maybe he had some other gaps that I could fill in the 95, which he did. But for the most part, I had every one that he sent except for I think two or three. And he also included some of the graded ones. I didn't include that in the blanket statement of one of each rookie. I didn't include any graded stuff for the rookies. The only thing that I notated or mentioned from a graded perspective was the finest Centurions.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only one, because that was a big one. I wanted that one. So we'll see. I mean, it's one thing to have the person actually go through it and take the time, which I appreciate, which means I really want to be able to get a deal done.
Yeah.
But, if that was their personal collection, and I've dealt with this multiple times with individuals, because I bought a lot of Terrell Davis collections in my YouTube years.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's hard as a collector to reach that point, I guess, to where you're ready to part with something. And so there's that sentimental connection. So it's a lot harder to let it go. You don't want it to go cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you hope that it goes to somebody who can appreciate it.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like, if you're a big collector, you don't want to just give it away because you know how much time, effort, and money you've got into it. You just don't want to sit there and be like, okay, whatever. Here's a, like I said, black diamond triple gold or whatever, to 50 or 100, $5. Like, no, nobody is doing that. But at the same time, when you have people on eBay, and this is more so for like the buy it nows or whatever, when they have something up, say, Bledsoe, if I collected Bledsoe graded stuff, let's say it was like PSA 10 or BGS Black Label, the SP rookie, cool as hell card, but when you got like $50,000 price tag on it, again, maybe it eventually could be worth that because that the condition, but at the same time, nobody's going to be looking. What do you want to get? A substantial down payment on a house, or even buying a house or property or a vehicle, or a Drew Bledsoe rookie card. Again, you have to find the right people to sort of peddle your wares to. And again, there's always going to be the nostalgia part, which has been talked about quite a bit with us and with others as of late. That's the thing that really you can jump in and sort of, it's always going to be there with us until we all die. Then that's where you have to sort of think of like the next generation of collectors. How much is that nostalgia part going to play into, hey, I did a little bit with Mahomes, or I did a little bit with Zeke Elliott, or whoever else, and then like 15, 20 years down the road, and they have, well, I know the kids now have some serious coin. Let's say you have your career, you have your house, you have your car, you have family or whatever. Now I've got some more disposable income. That's those, again, thoughts that completely are useless in my everyday life But things I think about, like for us, nostalgia was monstrous. We've talked
Yep.
about with wrestling, we've talked about with toys, we've talked about with cards, shows, everything that kid-wise that brought us back to like a happier time. How is that translating now with kids, social media, just general unrest in everyday life, no matter where you seem to turn? If your parents are watching the news, most of the news isn't good on there. Good news doesn't bring ratings, bad news does. And then just again, the ability to get cards physically in the store, which pretty much nobody's been able to do for the past 8 months or so. It's I look at that, and then that's why I go back to the situations like you're in with the Terrell Davis stuff. I'm like, I'm always willing to pay a little bit more, depending on, again, what the card is, what the starting price is. If they had the black diamond gold, let's say at like a $40 bid, and you're like, man, I'd like to pay 30. That'd be where I feel really good at. And you're watching with like a minute left and nobody still has bid. I'm like, you know what? I've seen this once in my Terrell Davis collecting career. I put 45 just to sort of feel good about it, and you get it for 40. I'm at the same time of overpaying, taking the consideration, the rarity, and not seeing it. I'd be happy just because, okay, again, we've talked about it too. One off the list.
Yep.
And a rarer one, not just like, okay, here's a Panini gold vinyl or a Panini gold prism from the past couple years, which are nice. We don't knock the new stuff because it's not nice, and there aren't some cool innovations with them. We knock it where the price has gotten to the point of you're paying more for a Terrell Davis to 50 than you're paying the Terrell Davis to like 50, and you're paying 35 for that.
I don't think that's always the case. My personal opinion. There's a lot of people though that have a tendency that just they get out of the hobby for whatever reason. Every Terrell Davis collection that I have purchased has been from a collector, somebody who collected Terrell Davis as part of one of their main collections. Losing their job is the possibility because you need the ability to pay your expenses. I mean, that's a big deal. But for me personally, every Terrell Davis collection that I've purchased, it's because they're, for whatever reason, they decided to stop collecting. And it hurts me to see a Terrell Davis collector drop. I mean, it does. Because he never got a lot of the hobby love that I feel like he deserved, especially from a playoff career perspective. He will go down as probably the best playoff running back performer ever to play the game. And I'll argue that until I'm blue in the face. I mean, go look at the numbers. You can't argue them. His playoff career is better than some running back's entire career. I mean, I know that. Try and let that sink in for a minute. Dave, I know you get where I'm coming with that. But he didn't get the hobby love that he should have. He does more now because they're putting out more and more stuff of him. He made it to the Hall of Fame. So that's, people always have a tendency to, kind of move towards Hall of Fame caliber players or Hall of Fame players, because usually once they're in the Hall of Fame, their stuff is never really going to go down. It kind of cements that set price, I guess. And as years progress, typically you're going to see an increase. You're going to see, some of those cards increase in value, especially if you don't have anybody who gets close to the same type of playoff performance that he did during his career. But it hurts me to see a Terrell Davis collector leave. I mean, it does. But it's also a good thing from my perspective, is because I can push that angle. I hate to see somebody leaving the hobby and being a Terrell Davis collector, because, we share a brotherhood, so to speak. But just know, and I would talk about my collection and how long I've collected Terrell Davis and the unique card counts that I would have at the time, and not to get them to sell it to me for cheap. That's not the objective. I mean, you always want to get something for the best price. Let's be realistic here. You want to get the best price. You want to pay something in which you both feel comfortable accepting. I mean, that's the whole end result. But giving them a little bit of information about me and my collection and everything else, and just to give them an idea. There's some of them that wanted to see my photo bucket. I know that's like an ancient term these days. I still have mine. I haven't added anything to it because, now they actually charge you for crap these days. But photo bucket used to be free. So I still have a lot of cards on photo bucket. And, I just sit there and say it's based on categories and everything else. This is not all of it. I never went back and started, uploading the other pictures along the way and things along those lines. So I'd carry on this conversation. And that's usually how I was able to complete some of those purchases. They knew it was going to go to somebody who would, in fact, truly appreciate it. And it's like all of them would say, I find solace knowing that this is going to a good home. I know that you're going to appreciate it. It's not you trying to purchase something, flip it, and make a quick buck. It's like, no, this is my main guy. I mean, here's the boxes of the collection. Here's pictures of my office. This is my guy. And so I've been very fortunate. I want to say I've purchased 4 collections in my current YouTube career, I guess, back from when I started, even up through now. And I've added some really nice stuff through those conversations. And I'm, hoping at some point that same thing will transpire and be able to work out something with the individual in Germany. I think it's going to cost me a pretty penny. I may be having to call my Amish bank friend and saying, hey, I may need some help. But I won't know until we get there. So it's hard to know. So we'll see.
And that's what I talked about with you, I think, the other day with the Instagram. That's, as much as I hate social media, and Joey brings it up here, it's a quick thing, too, where you can just be like, hey, here's my Bart Star stuff. Here's my Clay Matthews to Michael. Here's my Terrell Davis for you. Here's my assorted shift bags for you. That's sort of, I guess, I'd say the new photo bucket, where we knew it, what you could actually put in your story there, a little, and I don't mean like the story where the video pops up and you see clips. I mean just like you could put the link in, or the verbiage below the picture, and that's a whole nother grouping of people. But yeah, trying to find, to your point too, what I think you were making is when these people do happen to get out of the hobby for whatever reason, that's another strike while the iron's hot moment, because you don't have 800 Terrell Davis collectors that have a huge amount of cards from that catalog of like the 95 to 02, 04 that are just like, okay, these ones are up. You don't have those opportunities to purchase in bulk or whatever it would be. So those times when it does happen, even if it is, okay, it's not going to be a deal done within a week. It might take a month or two. I might have to sort of be lean in whatever expenses or whatever card purchases I get. That may be where I focus at that time, because guess what? It's that's where, if I can complete the deal, knowing I've got some sort of baseline price in mind, where you come up like, okay, let's say that Germany has X amount. I'm going $10, let's say average a card, or $15 a card. Let's say they've got 200 cards. Okay, that's going to cost a lot. So you got to sort of be cognizant of them, but you don't want something to come up on eBay or wherever else you're on social media and whatnot to look for cards. Like Vinny said, you shook your head vehemently no. That you don't want something like that you really want, that you pined for, you yearn to get, that sort of passes by because you're so dead set with your focus on the potential deal at hand.
No, that's why I have my checklist, Joey. As much as what I think I have a pretty good idea, there's a lot of times in which I always have to refer back to the checklist, because it would piss me off, especially if it was something rare and I spent 20, 30, 40, 50, $60 on it, to find out I already had one. Dave would be okay for something like that.
To a degree. Josh Johnson, yes.
And that's what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
So for something like that, you would be okay with it. For me, it would piss me off. And it's like, well, son of a bitch. Now I have to wait for them to ship it. I have to wait for her to get it. Now I need to freaking relist it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I need to recoup some of those funds and hope that maybe I get lucky and get the same amount of money that I purchased.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always a guarantee. Yeah, I can put it up, buy it now best offer for, what I paid for it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to get less. So then I lose some of that I lose some of the funds in which I invested in said card. Which is why I always do my best in trying to prep for certain situations, that I refer always back to that checklist, because it would piss me off to high heaven to buy something that I already had. If it's a couple bucks, which I've done, if it's a couple bucks, I can deal with that. But when you're talking a larger sum of money, and I'm not talking hundreds of dollars here, I've never done that, thank goodness. But since the card budget is smaller than what it used to be, that's a substantial amount of money to tie up in the hopes that something else doesn't pop up. And I get that too. I was going to say, I get that too, Joey. And I remember what a lot of the cards look like, which is why typically I don't have to go back to the checklist frequently, but there are certain times in which they kind of like meld together. And it's, the 99, 2000, 2001, 2002 time frame that all those cards have a tendency just to kind of meld together. The earlier stuff, I pretty much know. 95, 96, 97, 98, I pretty much know if something pops up, I know it's a need, typically right off the bat. I mean, doesn't mean I go after it. I'll watch it, trying to get price points and everything else. But those years, I know pretty well. It's a little bit later on that they just start kind of running together.
Now you say you don't want to pick up, or you don't like picking up multiples. I'll propose this question because, again, being older now, I don't even remember if we've talked about it. Everybody sort of knows my stance, and we're like Josh Johnson. I'm perfectly comfortable picking up print runs of like a red refractor. I've got one. I think I've only got the one print run of 2011 Marquee. I think they had an auto. There's one auto numbered 20, and there's a parallel that had no discernible differences to 5, and I've got all 5 of them. But let's say, like, hypothetically, you've got whatever, something numbered to 100, something that you enjoy. Another one comes up on auction or a buy now best offer. You're like, I really like that card. I know I shouldn't spend money towards it, but I know I like that, and even more so to buy it now. Like it's an atomic refractor or some sort of whatever parallel spectrum or something to 50. And you're like, okay, I know I spent X amount on my one copy. This copy is incredibly cheaper than the currently owned copy. Do you at any point in time just say, you know what, I want to get another copy of that because A, it's just too cheap at whatever price it's priced at, or because you're like, that is one of the top 10 cards that I have or don't have, combination, whatever it may be, that I love looking at. If I get bored, if I'm not getting anything in, I go back and I look through my stuff, which we'll talk about at some point with the hobby burnout. You go and you're like, that's one of the cards I gravitate towards because it's something I really love. Or do you just say, you know what, I don't want to spend the $20 or $15 or whatever it may be on that card because I want to allocate those funds to a need, something that I actually physically need for my collection, not something that I'm really interested in acquiring another copy of. I always like to hear that from collectors, just because I know what my mindset is with Amaro, Josh Johnson, Northcutt is a town. Kerry Collins, I don't do it as much, but those other guys like Gino Gaduli, Walter Reyes, all these low tier nobodies, Mike Walker, I like picking up as much. But again, for me, Mike Walker stuff doesn't cost a shit ton. And again, I know that you're not going to be picking up if you collect Emmett Smith. You're going to be picking up 10 of those, whatever, like a Black Diamond Gold, if you can, because that's going to be a ton of money. I get that. But if the happen chance comes along and you pick up something for a great deal, would you?
I'm not at a point in my collection that this is personally, I'm not at a point to where that piques my interest. That doesn't mean that, let's say, 5 years down the road, I'm not sitting at, 87% to where it's like that wouldn't be a possibility. There are certain cards that, yes, I find very aesthetically pleasing, that I love to look at and things along those lines. But right now, I still have so many holes to fill. I don't give a shit if somebody gets it for cheap. You know, if my situation was different, not just from my own personal collection perspective, from a monetary perspective, then yeah, I could see myself doing that because, you know, screw you, I paid $50 for this card. It's up for buy it now for $10. Screw you, nobody else is going to have it. I could see me doing that. I could see me being that dick. But I'm not in a position financially and or in my own collection mind that I have any interest. The only, I will say there's one caveat to that. And it's not really the same, but from a printing plate perspective, and this is something that at some point we can have a conversation about because they shouldn't be 1 of 1s, they should be 1 of 4s. 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4. They're not 1 of 1s. It takes 4 plates to make a card, so therefore there's 4. I never understood that whole thought process. I get it. There is only 1 black plate. Okay, I get that. But when you think of subsets, parallels, that type of stuff, there's 4 of them. But anyways, I digress. That would be the only difference to that type mindset or that type philosophy. Because, you know, being a player collector, and although, yes, I have my obtainable type nomenclature set up in my spreadsheets and everything else, printing plates are a different story. The only difference is, yes, I get it. Terrell Davis is in the Hall of Fame. A regular base printing plate shouldn't sell for $50. I'm just saying. $35 is even pushing it. Just saying. Most plates that I picked up over the years have been, you know, 17 to 26, give or take. And I'm okay paying that. 35 and higher, I can't justify it. When you start getting into 1 of 1 plate autos, different situation. I still think that there are some people who puts a lot more of a premium on a plate auto than what they should. Because let's be realistic. If you look at plates and patches, for instance, you have all the base plates for all the products that Panini did. They put the plates in plates and patches. You have certified. You have plates for plates and patches. You have the plates for like base Donruss. You know, I don't know if they put them all in there, but they put a crap ton of plates in that product, which they should. It's called plates and patches. Let's be real. There should be quite a few plates. But then when you start getting into autos, typically, not always, but a lot of the times, the base card in the base auto or the insert in the insert auto, it's the same fucking plate. So now you have 4 plates of the insert card, and then now all of a sudden you have 4 plate autos of said insert, why do you now have 8 plates?
Mm-hmm.
So help me understand. The plate used to make the auto usually is not any different, unless you're talking about certain spacing or to allow for like an on-card auto type situation. But when you look at the cards, you have your card, and then you have your on-card auto. When you look at them, they're the same. They look exactly the same, except one's autographed, one's not. And then they do the same thing with the plates. So wait a minute. So now you've changed the dynamic of the printing plate.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have 4 for one and 4 for the other. So now you have 8 plates. How is that possible? It's not. It's a money grab.
Mm-hmm.
You go back to the Pacific days, and you had plates. They weren't inserted in packs. The only way you started seeing the plates come out is after Pacific went out of business.
Yep.
And people got a hold of them, through liquidation or whatever. You had front and back, which makes sense. You should technically have 2 plates for each color for the front and the back.
Mm-hmm.
If 4 colors make up the printing of said card to give you the color scheme, it should be the same front and back. So for Pacific, you saw front and back plates. But they weren't serial numbered, they weren't anything, and they were a hell of a lot flimsier than some of the plates that you see today. And the reason for that is because they put a fucking card back on the back of them. And, put something on it, and then boom, there's your stamp 101. Regular tops, when they started inserting printing plates, they were thin, flimsy, and everything else. Very condition sensitive. But they put the sticker on the back so you knew who it was, the card number, what the color plate was, so on and so forth. That was cool. That was a cool thing. Printing plates, when they came out with it, that was a cool thing. 97 Pinnacle, the first ones to do it, folks. FYI. Try finding one of those. Ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not happening. But I've never understood, like with newer shit now, how you can have 8 plates. You can't. You can't. If the card is the same, you can't have 8 plates. I'll get off my pedestal on that front, but that's the only time in which I would buy multiples. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's like I said, printing plates should be 1 of 4s, 2 of 4s, 3 of 4s, however way you want to associate it. Put it in alphabetical order, which would dictate 1, 2, 3, 4. So from that perspective, then in those situations, yes, I would. But for something that's numbered to 5, numbered to 10, numbered to 25, 50, I'm not in a position to where that's feasible for me. And it's really not financial focused. It really is that I'm not in a position where I feel in my collection to where I could do that without potentially impacting something down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, because I've always, when I say I collect pretty much any of the Johnsons out there, that's always with the caveat that I know my none of my guys are getting made anymore. There's no, unless again down the road, Topps Archive starts throwing in some of the old Topps, Josh Johnson and like the slabs or whatever, and adds them to like a fan favorites type of set or situation such as that. They're not coming out with Josh Johnson Panini button cards or logo mans now. I mean, I think he's fairly happy being away. I won't say from baseball, but I mean, he's not going to be doing autograph signings. He's not going to be sitting there and getting his mug on the a Twitter or wherever. He's pretty comfortable staying out of the limelight.
Right. What's going on, Bob?
So that's where, and it's always apples and oranges completely with TD and Josh Johnson. TD, Hall of Famer, amazing short career. Josh Johnson, not a Hall of Famer, amazing 3-ish years on a team that isn't widely collected. The Marlins fan base is always being screwed with, like, oh, we got to rebuild, build it up just to tear it down. Denver, the Orange Crush, they had a substantial fan base pretty much since the onset.
Yep.
I mean, even iconic players over the years, or even if they're not iconic in the Hall of Fame sense, it's like, okay, they're polarizing guys. Like a Tebow, you could sit there and talk with Tebow and be like, okay, Denver Broncos. Yes.
Well, and
he doesn't own it. I think he's like a GM or something of the sorts.
Well, and they had the right pieces to build their Super Bowl run. And you look at even in the early 90s with the Three Amigos, they went deep into the playoffs. They had great runs. Late 80s, early 90s, I should say. Great receivers. Hall of Very good. They won't ever make the Hall of Fame. You look at the run in the late 90s. They're back-to-back Super Bowl wins. Rod Smith and Ed McCaffrey are never going to make the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
It's not – they're just not. You have Shannon Sharpe, Terrell Davis, and John Elway from an offensive perspective that made the Hall of Fame. So they've always had Hall of really good, you jackass. Rubbing it in my face. I'll send you a bag.
Don't you worry.
I don't want it 6 months from now, though, Dave.
Well, you won't. I knew it was going to be a problem with them here.
Yeah, I was surprised you waited this long. Throw them across the room. So now, if you want one, you have to get up and go get it.
Out of arm's length, out of mind.
So they've had decent players, and the fan base is always there. The only way that you get season tickets is usually if somebody dies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how Denver is. You go on a waiting list, and they go down the list as people either willingly give up their license,
mm-hmm.
which doesn't happen very often, or the owner of said tickets passes away, and then the next person comes up on the list. My best friend, he's been on the list for years. He actually got a phone call, I think 2 years ago, and it was for 2 tickets, which is all he needed. He and his wife. Every once in a while, he would take his uncle, one of his uncles, and, I would always be a possible individual to go with him. But he was like, no, upper bowl. I'll wait.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait. I mean, he's not looking for 50-yard line tickets. He's not, looking for premium seats. But, if you've ever gone to a Denver game in the middle of winter, you do not want to be upper bowl. It's fucking cold. We were catty cornered to the end zone. I want to say like 20 so rows up in November. It wasn't super cold. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't super cold. But it was still fucking cold because the wind is coming off the Rockies, man. It's no bullshit. So I could only imagine what it would be like at the upper levels in the middle of freaking December, or let's say, the freaking playing the Chiefs. It was snowing. It wasn't heavy or anything along those lines. But being up at the upper decks with the wind chills coming off of the Rockies, I've been there. I know it's bad in Minnesota. I'm not taking away from what it's like for you up north. Here in Texas, typically the coldest we get from a wind chill perspective is single digits. And that's still fucking cold.
Yeah.
The last time, well, not the last time, but I was in Colorado on business over Thanksgiving week. And this has probably been 17 years ago. Snow already on the ground. Not a lot, but snow already on the ground. And it was Monday. We got in on Sunday. We found out that the phone switch actually got delivered, so we went ahead over to the customer site to, get an idea of the lay of the land, how they wanted it laid out so we could be prepped for Monday, right? I don't know what the hell transpired between Sunday and Monday, but I shit you not. The freaking wind chill had to be like 30 below. I walked outside and I dressed warm. I had my jacket on. I've never been a gloves guy. I've never been, like a hat guy that covers my ears. I've never been that guy. I live in Texas. I smoked very little that day, that work day, because I couldn't find a fucking place to duck behind something to block the freaking wind because it was like swirling everywhere. And sitting out there trying to smoke a cigarette, doing one of these things and going, and you're smacking yourself in the face. No, you're smacking yourself in the face because your teeth are chattering and everything else, and you're going, fuck this. I mean, I need a smoke, but this is freaking bullshit. I have never experienced such cold in my life. And I am so thankful the 2 weeks I was up in Canada, it was not during the freaking heart of winter. Because I probably would have said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going home. Because we walked to and from the hotel. So we walked from the hotel to the office. And it was probably 6 blocks, 7 blocks. And if I would have thought about it, I would have probably bought some. Just saying. Because back then, they didn't have freaking e-cigs and shit along those lines. But if I would have thought about it, I probably would have stopped and got some. Or some snuff or something. But I wouldn't have been walking. You could kiss my ass. Because they always talk about, and I hate the freaking Canadians. Oh yeah, it's 12 below. Okay, that's fucking Celsius. Give it to me in Fahrenheit, man. You always sit there. Oh, it's freaking cold. It's 12 below. Okay, well in Fahrenheit that's like 3, or it isn't. I know it's warmer than that, but it's still cold. But don't give me this 12 below shit because of you using Celsius. No, you're still not below zero yet, dude. Just because that's what you use, no. When you start getting into, 36 below, then we'll have those conversations because then you're actually below zero from a Fahrenheit perspective, or pretty damn close. Because I know it gets fucking cold where you are, especially from a wind chill perspective.
Oh,
I mean, I've seen 40 below wind chills and everything else in Minnesota, Iowa, that area. It's like, nope. So sorry.
yeah, I think the coldest I've felt air temperature wise without wind chill. I don't know the exact number. I know a town probably 25 minutes away in 96. Think about end of January, beginning of February. It's 62 below. And I think Ely would have been probably 55, 58 below then because it's a little lower ground there. But yeah, there's been 55, 60 below wind chills. And I mean that you can wear jeans and then you can wear the long underwear. Even if it's a 10-mile-an-hour wind, it still cuts right through everything. And it feels like daggers and pins and needles are poking you. If you're out for any amount of time, it is absolutely horrendous. And see, Joey knows what's up.
And I get that, and I mad respect for especially if you're walking in it.
Mm-hmm.
My postal person here gets to drive up and down the road. Never has to leave the vehicle unless it's a larger package or whatever requires a signature type thing. But I know, Dave, don't laugh. The low was 36. The high was 39 here today. Wind chill was 28. The wind, for whatever reason, down here in Texas, in North Texas, the wind freaking cuts through you like a knife, and I don't understand it. I mean, it's one of those in which you come outside, you know it's cold, you see the wind chill, so you know what it feels like, and you get in it, and the wind is just, and I'm not talking, 30-mile-an-hour gusts. I'm not talking like crazy, but 10 to 15 miles an hour, it still cuts through you. I mean, like you alluded to, it's like the pins, the needles, on your face, and you're sitting there going, son of a bitch, it's cold. And it's barely, I mean, you're talking 28 degrees for the wind chill. It's not like super cold. But on the flip side, we're in October. The last time it was this cold near Halloween, and we actually had snow on Halloween, I was still in middle school or in high school. So over 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, is the last time I can remember it being this cold in October. It's
It's
crazy.
been hideous. I think tomorrow they say it's going to get to a high of 40, which again doesn't seem like a lot, but the highs we've had have been mid 20s, low 20s, lows and right around 10. I mean, it's October. this is the end of November, early December cold that we're having already, and they walked me home from the store. It's about like 8 blocks. I didn't have gloves with me. That I had a grocery bag, and then I had a plastic bag for my boots because I still wear the sandals in the store because until it gets really greasy on the roads and in the parking lot, those sandals are the most comfortable thing for me, the Keen brand. But walking home with that and trying to like tuck my hand into my jacket sleeve, by the time I got home, it's just like you need like that fireplace just to put your hands by for like 10 minutes just to get all the blood circulating the correct way. Or else when it feels like your hand is asleep, that is one of the worst feelings in the world because it's just horrendous.
Have you always walked to work though, Dave?
Depends. I mean, there's a lot of times I do, a lot of times I don't. I mean, it's just right now more so yes, but
Well, that's because you've got snow on the ground though too. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. And if you can deal with the cold and the snow and everything, you're better off walking instead of being in a vehicle, especially if you're not having to go that far. I mean, it'd probably take you longer to drive than it would to walk.
it right now it wouldn't be bad, but and again, it's not technically needed, but everybody warms up their car. It's not to warm up the engine, it's to warm up the inside. And I'd be
Yeah.
waiting probably longer for that. Again, unless I had like a remote start, and then be like, okay, now I can get dressed.
Yeah, I walk to work too. I walk about 15 feet from my bedroom to my kitchen table.
Hmm.
My wife walks about the same distance, give or take. Yeah.
Huh.
But I still take the kiddo to school. So I do have to warm up the car. One nice thing I do love about my new car, which most people don't know that I have a new car. I think only two people. Uh, that was my big purchase in March. My other car decided to crap out, so I had to. Well, I bought a new used car. It's a 2017, but it's got freaking seat warmers. Yeah, let me tell you, those come in handy
That's a game.
until you realize, oh shit, my ass is on fire. Because I mean, them damn things warm up fast. It's like
Hmm.
before you realize it, you're going, son of a bitch, I'm sweating.
Yeah.
Freaking turn it off, turn down the heat. Whew.
Why the hell is it so hot in here? Oh, that's right. My butt's on
Yep, got
fire.
the heat on. Yep, got the heated seats going. The heat's at 86 degrees or whatever, blowing full blast, and you're going, why the hell am I sweating all of a sudden? Oh, gee, it's almost like a sauna in here.
Yeah, that for me, I've always well, I would heat it up or warm up the car, but it would only be necessary when it gets like super, super cold. You got like that temperature that's like 25, 20 below, whatever it is. You sort of you don't want to just take off because whatever fluids are in there, you have to get them to the point where they're going to flow freely. Again, they don't freeze up completely, but at the same time, you don't want to just take off and risk something going wrong.
Yep. Now that would piss me off, Vinny. My wife doesn't have heated seats in her truck, but that does give me a good idea, though, in the event that if we ever take my car somewhere, I may have to. I'll pay back my wife on your behalf. How's that? I'll just make sure it's 102 or 103 degrees outside. with a heat index of 110 or 112. Still had the AC blowing, but I'll make sure I turn on the heated seats. Yeah. Just for you, Vinny. Just for you. So how is the game going for those watching it? That's what I was doing earlier. I turned it on in my bedroom, but it was on commercial when I was in there.
I think the last score I saw, again, that was right before we came on, was I think 1-0 Dodgers. But again, that'd
have been like the first inning.
Yeah.
I will say I'm rooting for the Dodgers. Just I don't give two shits about the Dodgers, but 2-1. Aha! What inning? Yeah, I got a couple cards, I think. Oh, is it still that long?
I just found the shirt in a bag. I got it, I don't know how many years ago. Obviously, I know it's too small because it's basically a belly shirt right now, but I figured wear something different than a white shirt that's pretty much what I wear all the time is the white shirts. I love it. Minus eating in them. It's just a nightmare.
Well, especially if you're a sloppy eater, Dave. And if you eat anything like you did with your chicken sandwiches, then I can assume that half of it's always on your shirt.
I think right after that video said put the sauce on there or whatever, I continued to eat those, and one of the sauce droplets that was a major one just dropped. I'm just like, go figure.
What was it?
I haven't looked at the WA stuff in a while, which has been good for the old budget, but it's tough, and that we'll get into that with the burnout.
So what'd you get, Vinny? Chop, type faster. Come on, man, you're killing me, Smalls.
Hey, that's my saying. That's for me. Me only.
Oh, sorry, I just insulted my child. Good one, babe.
No, that was weak. Dad, I only cut my finger once.
Oh, it's not horrendous either.
That's my point. I only did it once. But
one time I got both fingers.
But did you die?
Never mind, it was technically twice. I got 2 fingers. Exactly. But did you die? Yes.
I
did.
They were carving pumpkins at the neighbor's house.
I did the Sherlock one. They all said mine was the best.
2013, 14 Upper Deck, 1990s. Well, it's hockey. I don't know that. That goes to show you my lack of obsession for hockey, even though you and Carlos swear up and down there's a secret love.
Maybe.
Oh, and Carlos actually did respond to my comment. You know how I texted you and said my ribs were sore from all the jabs?
Yes.
That was my comment to Carlos on his video or from the podcast or whatever. And I don't remember what he said, but he's like, come on, Since I kind of popped in only a couple times, and
That was a short one.
yeah, I was going to say, do we have one longer? Was our first one like 4?
I think we had one that was just 8 or 10 minutes under 5 hours.
Okay, I couldn't remember because it was kind of interesting And it cracked me up as I was watching it. I started syncing stuff to my TV, so that's what I actually finished. I was watching it on the TV in the bedroom, and I know of at least two times trying to wrap it up, and it just like kept going. And I'm going, man, that sure does feel freaking familiar. Damn, I wonder why that is. Because you start getting on a topic and things along those lines, and it just, or somebody sparks something in the comments, in the chat, and you just kind of take off with it. But I will have to say, if you and him can find a way to do a mystery science theater on one of our podcasts, figuring out a way to do that, the two of you on one of our podcasts, and make fun of it, make sure that fucking thing is live. Because I want to be there and I want to watch it. Because that would be great. You've got the odd sense of humor. Carlos is really quick sometimes on things. So I think that would be a good interaction, bantering back and forth, making fun of and it probably needs to be the first one. Just throwing that out there.
You'd almost have to make, well, for most of the episodes, right around that 4-hour mark, you'd almost have to have three riffings or whatever.
That's okay. That's okay. Or you do it in two. You do 2 hours, and then you do the next 2.5, 2:45, whatever it is, or 2.5. That'll be 5 hours, even though you don't need the whole time. But yeah, y'all need to start planning that. Y'all need to figure that out.
Yeah, I need to be on here live more than we are already. Last week was a killer. That was as tired as I've been in a long time.
Well, and I didn't realize that you ended up going on with Stove either.
Well, because this guy and his internet, I don't know if he had somebody digging next door in his backyard and just like thrashing away at his internet cable that he jumped on and then he'd jump off, and no communication between him and Mark.
Well, and that's the thing. I didn't see anything. So I knew he had mentioned, because he posted a video and he's like, we may not. I don't know. Mm-hmm. You know how we are. Just throwing it out there. So be looking for it. Don't be looking for it. And I didn't see anything because I'm like, I hadn't had a chance to see one of their live podcasts. I mean, during Hobbypalooza, I was there for a part of one. There was so many freaking things going on during Hobbypalooza. I couldn't watch all of it. It wasn't possible. So I was very selective. But it was one of those in which I enjoyed the shit out of it because, they banter quite frequently. They're like us. They're a little bit more humorous, I guess. Sorry, Dave, you and I just aren't as funny. But that's okay. I can live with that. And I'm sure you can too. But at the same time, it was like, well, shit. They're going on. If I have a chance to, pop on for a little bit, and no offense, guys, I'm usually hanging out with my neighbors across the street drinking. I know that's the only part of the story you don't believe.
Stop it.
But I will go on record. I did not have a drink last night, which is very unusual. I usually have one or two. But last night, for whatever reason, I didn't have a drink. And no, I'm not going to make up for it tonight. I do have to work tomorrow. So I'll still stick to my normal 3 to 4. And there will be no water. Just saying. You won't see any water, folks. Heaven forbid I bust out a bottle of water.
Yeah, we always joke with Bob about him falling into the hole in his kitchen ceiling. So I think he did that on that night. Which, again, I know I had talked with both of them. If we want to have you on at some point, just because I'm
Wow. Hey, Bob. Bob, I want to make sure that you're focused. I want to make sure you're paying attention. I got 2 words for you. Fuck you.
But at some point they want him in there for just. I think they've been horrified by the shower video, because that's usually when if I start building that connection with somebody, say, if you want to actually talk to me through texting or whatever, you've got to watch this video. This is sort of like your prerequisite to friendship, as it were. So I usually show the shower video. You can make it through the shower video. You get like the mule milk and the whoop, there it is. And again, contest response videos on here were fun. If you can make it through all of that stuff, guess what? You're probably, in my eyes, a decent person, a good person, because again, there's a lot of times my content, my videos are a lot to stomach, and you really have to sift through a dumpster fire to find that wooden nickel before it burns up.
All right, so before we get on the topic, if we ever end up getting on the topic, at this rate, it probably won't happen. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark, Dave, just FYI. With Dave being a little under the weather, we were trying to pay a little bit more attention to the time this go around, because, when Dave's a little sick, he turned into a little bit of a pansy and needs a lot more beauty sleep, but it doesn't help. Look at him. I mean, nothing changes. Much love, Dave, but you know that. So Vinny, I know you're still here. So I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. And because Dave and I were talking about this, was it last night via text?
Sometime over the past 2-3 days.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know why last night is what comes to mind. Vinny, let us know you're here, because I don't want to say something and you not be here, because that would kind of defeat the purpose. And I'll pose the same question to Bob, too. Because we know Bob's still here, maybe. I mean, that was 3 minutes ago. Okay, so he's still here. So you had mentioned at some point, and if I'm not mistaken, this was last week. Yes, that's an accurate statement, Bob. I would agree. Talking about maybe busting your video cherry, so to speak. So now that we've been doing this for a while, we'd like to start getting some of you guys involved in the podcast. I know you guys are here because you enjoy what the topics of conversation and our random rants and going off on all sorts of tangents. Keeps things interesting. That's why we enjoy this. Like I said, we always have a topic of discussion. You see it right there on the freaking screen, and we haven't talked about it at all, and probably won't. And that's okay, because we can just bring it up next week. But we want to start bringing some people on. Because, although when we start talking about topics, and I don't want to say, controversial topics, but, when we talked about the investing, collecting, flipping, that type of stuff, when we started talking about wrestling, we talked about toys. There was a lot of conversation sparked in some of those episodes from you guys. A lot of comments, and there was a few times that I'm sitting there trying to read them all, and I'm going, and then they were just flying down. And not like we have hundreds of viewers, but the fact that they were just just going down frequently. I mean, there a lot of conversation from the comments perspective. Bob, I know Bob's comfortable doing this. We wouldn't ask anybody to commit to the entire episode. It's hard enough for us to commit to the entire episode. No, that's not true. Dave and I could talk like this for all day, and that's not an exaggeration. We could always find something to talk about. But from a guest perspective, would you guys be interested? Because we've thought about people in our text messages, and some of them are. That's an accurate statement. Some of the titles are for that's one way to put it. And maybe that's why you tune into certain episodes thinking that we're actually going to talk about that. But you should realize that maybe that's the precursor for the next week. So Bob's on board. But we would need a commitment at least to make sure that you would be here at some point during the episode. And we'd have to figure out, and, if it's the first part of it, or if it's like the first hour, the second hour. Because we want to be able to, introduce you. When you guys come on, we're both here.
Mm-hmm.
We want to just throw people for a fucking curveball and be like, oh, and by the way, we have a special guest today. And bring you on.
Be like wrestling. Who's coming through? Who is this? And then put them on. Yeah, we.
I think Vinny went dormant.
As soon as you start talking about being live on camera.
I think I scared the shit out of him.
And again, this is what I like more than anything. This last, I'll say since February, and when somebody made a certain video about burning cards, I was open to a lot of new subscribers' eyes. That's where, and then Joey too, we want to get you on there. Carlos, that's when I first saw his channel. And I'm like, who the hell is this? He's got over 2,000 subscribers, and I don't have any clue. And he doesn't seem to be one of the influencer type people. He actually seems to be a collector. Where the hell has this guy been hiding? So I started watching his stuff a little. I'm like, man, he's an arrogant prick, but he knows what he's talking about. But guess what? He tells you he's an arrogant prick, and he doesn't hide behind a facade. But to me, that's, if you're knowledgeable and you're gonna put it all out there, do it. Don't pick a costume for the day. And
we gotta commit. Dave.
We got 3 right in a row there.
You'll have to let us know. Yeah, minus a half-hour intro. So, Vinny, you'll have to let us know. So we know not next week, which is cool. I know Dave probably, well, I know you probably have Bob's number, so you, yeah, for reasons. His catchphrase. I'm surprised Carlos isn't here, actually. But I know you probably have Bob's number. Sure, you probably have Joey's number.
And Vinny, we follow each other on Instagrams.
Okay. No worries, Ty. No, I dig Carlos. I mean, I agree with the sentiment, Dave, but at the same time, he doesn't beat around the bush. He tells you straight up. And you know what? It's one of those in which I respect honesty, and it's I mean I enjoy watching his stuff. I watched the whole freaking 4.5 hour broadcast of you and him on the replay.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that was fun to watch. It was different. You know, it's one thing that, because I've watched a few of our replays, and you know, part of that's to see how much of a fucking dumbass I sound like, or you know, how ignorant I am, or you know. But I stopped doing that. I can only handle hearing myself talk so much. No, Ty, we have not gotten there. And we probably won't. Just throwing that out there. We may actually finally get on topic to close out the episode like we did last week, as Carlos, you know, so conveniently alluded to in the podcast that he had with you. That, you know, you finally did get on topic. Well, you know, this is, as Dave stated, the hashtag Insert Revolution podcast. The insert part is insert topic here. Just saying, because there is no rhyme or reason. We always, as he always says, we always have kind of like a precedent. We always have something that we want to talk about, and we try to get to it. It's not like we purposely try and avoid the topic of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's never the expectation. But depending on the interactions or what we're talking about or what you guys bring up throughout the podcast ultimately dictate where we go. And that's why there's times in which sometimes we don't ever get to this subject. You're absolutely you are. Within reason. Within reason. And we'll have to make sure that we tailor that episode towards hockey stuff. I can still talk about hockey. I love the sport. I love the Stars. I don't love the Cards. That's nothing against them. I have an appreciation of them because of the era, for instance, in which Dave collects. There's an appreciation there because it's still in my wheelhouse. And the fact that some of their inserts carry over into the other sports with some tweaks, which is something that they didn't do in any of the other sports, which is cool. Oh, he's got a football project. So I'm guessing that you'll premiere that in said episode? We're going to get a special premiere?
Have to work on like the graphics and stuff. It's like a big red debut.
Yes, when he's on, you're going to have to find something that, illustrates the live or video debut, but don't spoil who it is. At least the people who are consistent followers, who are, really true, whether they're here live or they usually always check out the replay, which, guys always know we appreciate it. And we mean it. Comments, suggestions, topics of conversation. Dave did a lot of good work when he was on vacation up on Superior, and I think had topics all the way through 13, give or take 14 maybe, which is right around the corner.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's coming up on where I got to start thinking again and trying to not have overlapping stuff, because it's just, you don't want to sit there and constantly talk about the same thing. Again, yeah, you'll bring up points during whatever discussion, but you don't want to go on and on about focus every episode. You throw it in there when you can and then move on to something else. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go actually look through the episodes, the titles, and at least think there, and then start. And that's where I want to get other folks on, and then
just have topics and just have random discussions. That's a load of bullshit, Vinny. And Bob, I have a complete set of that. Desert Storm.
Different folks talk about their passions as well, because again, at some point I think it was either Vinny or Joe, Dr. Exclusive, that said something about having something like sort of what Matt did. I was like, okay, here's all the pro line inserts. Have like a 16 bracket. Again, with Matt, it's easier because he's got a computer and a desktop board from you can sort of peel off to the visual aspect of the bracket. And be like, okay, here's whatever the 95 Game Breakers against the 97 Pro Line DC3 Road to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, you can visually see that, then you can visually see the cards. And again, my Amish technology and platform I use, it's just a cell phone. But yeah, you can still do it. And you'd have to write stuff down, but that's nothing. But at the same point, seeing that stuff up, and then
there has to be a way. Speak of the devil. Excuse me. Carlos has arrived. There has to be a way, though. We'll come back to that question, Bob. There has to be a way. Even with you hosting, okay? I'm on a laptop. There has to be a way. And maybe Carlos is the guy who can, maybe lead us in the right direction. There should be no reason why I can't share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
We've tried a few times and can't get it to work for whatever reason. There should be no reason why I can't share my screen, because I am on a laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I know from your phone perspective, you don't have that option in your little widget screen.
Yeah.
Which I can understand why. But for me, I had that option. But we can't ever get it to work. And I don't understand why. So, Carlos, what we may need to try and do is figure out a way for the three of us to sync up or whatever, and maybe not go live. And you can kind of talk me through things, because we've tried it before. Okay. See, and that's the part that I was curious, because I know it all has to derive from the host. But since I do have the option, since I am on a laptop, I would think that there should be a way to allow or deny my ability to share screen. But we can talk about that at some point and see if we can't figure it out. But we could definitely use your help from that perspective at some point, especially if we end up doing, like the insert stuff. Look at years, and then, we can do it however way we want and bring, Bob and Carlos and whatever. I mean, we could bring in a group of people, 4 or 5 people, because the max you can do is 6, right? Isn't that the max you can do? Okay. So we'll figure.
And then what, like 10 for the pay? 10 or
yeah, 10 if you pay. Yep. Okay, that's kind of what I remember. But if you'll go back to Bob's question, so either Bob has missed the episodes or he hasn't watched the replay. Just saying. Yeah, that's a jab, sir. Me personally, yes, I have. I've gone through phases. I've collected Magic the Gathering. I wish I still had a lot of my old stuff. I sold it a long time ago. It is what it is. I love the art. I loved playing the game. Nowadays, it's too freaking complicated, and I haven't stayed up to date with a lot of the new gameplay and stuff. I know that's not the right word. And if there's an MTG person in here, I apologize for using dynamics or whatever the fuck they call it. But I still do have some Magic stuff. When Desert Storm was a big thing going on in the early 90s, I do have a complete set of Desert Storm. I actually put that together. I have some comic stuff, comic cards. Not a lot, but I do. So, and early on in my childhood, okay, maybe not early on in my childhood, I had a pretty extensive Garbage Pail Kids collection. I loved them. I wish I still had them.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I still had them. Because I mean, all the way up to first edition. I remember when they came out. So I've dabbled in a lot of things, but I've always come back to football. I mean, I've dabbled in some of the other sports too. I mean, baseball, football, basketball. I've kind of flip-flopped back and forth on no hockey. Okay, a little hockey. 92, 93. But Vinny's a self-proclaimed nerd. So I've dabbled in a lot of stuff. I have a few comics. Superman Dead. When they killed him off, I have a few like special edition that GameStop put out. It was never like heavy duty.
Mm-hmm.
But, does anybody remember Prominent Cuts when that first came out? So each box had one or two cut autos, but it also had memorabilia from different movie stars and stuff along those lines. Had a base set. I don't remember who manufactured it, but I don't believe it was Leaf.
Okay.
I think it was actually Upper Deck, if I'm not mistaken. But I bought quite a few boxes from Chris at the Hobby Box, hoping to get that big cut. That was the time in which I was looking for the big bang. I did pull a Bruce Lee memorabilia card, which was what was it? It was all the furry. I mean, it was like the furry coat or vest or whatever he wore from one of his movies or whatever. That thing actually made big bucks. But they did have like some MMA fighters in there. That was like some of the guaranteed autographs.
Dominus Americana. Was that it?
It was Prominent Cuts. 2011, I think, is the year.
Okay.
But I mean, I tried to put like the base set together. I never finished it. But I was just sitting here trying to think of some of the, because you could call it non-sport, because it didn't just have sports figures and stuff along those lines. It had, some movie stars and stuff like that. That's the only stuff that comes to mind from a card collecting perspective. I could probably go through some of my boxes of stuff. Beavis and Butthead cards. Nothing wrong with that. I didn't get into any of the other like TCGs, Pokemon, or some of the other collectible card games that. Yeah, no Yu-Gi-Oh, none of that type of stuff. I always had an interest in Magic just because of the artwork. Not that I'm a big art lover by any stretch of the imagination. It was just Prominent Cuts. There you go. That's when it was, 2009. Some of those are mine. Like I said, I didn't get anybody huge by any stretch of the imagination. But I can't think of anything else outside of Magic, comics, or comic cards, I should say. Garbage Pail Kids, like I said, which I wish I still had. And they were fun. It was a change of pace. I opened a shit ton of Pacific Nolan Ryan.
Oh.
I think at one point in time, I think I had like 11 sets or some shit that I put together over the years. And I never pulled. I pulled a silver border parallel, but I never pulled a gold border. And every once in a while, I'll do a search on eBay because there's one that I really want in gold and in silver, because I don't have the silver anymore either. But I'll let you guess potentially which one you think it is.
For me, I'd want that one with the Jacksonville Suns. That would be the one I'd want. I want the one with the bloody lip. And you know why. Oh, there were times in which I went specifically to the card shop for Garbage Pail Kids. And it was later series, 11, 13, 17, 62, 579. I can't remember how many series it went up to. But the card shop that I used to go to when I was a kid, prior to the one I went to as I was older, the other one closed down because, unfortunately, he didn't run it quite like a business. He
he was too much a collector. Go figure. Which I can truly say kudos to individuals that actually can separate the business aspect and a personal collection, because that's got to be very difficult. And that's ultimately why the one shop went out of business, because he got to the point to where he didn't want to sell anything. His prices were so high from a card, like an individual card display perspective, that he ran himself out of business because he wouldn't sell anything. But they had a substantial grouping of garbage pail kids. And I would go and I would pick, and they were freaking dirt cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Dirt cheap. And pick a couple packs from this series, a couple packs from this series. And I love the shit out of them. And that's the thing. It's I don't want to say that I was what's the word I'm going to look for here? My family's always been a little odd, been a little strange. Nothing wrong with that. My mother used to laugh at him. My grandmother used to laugh about him. So it was like a humorous thing. And that's really what it boiled down to. Because, and I don't remember what year Cabbage Patch Kids came out, but I know that for one Christmas, my mother, because it was the big fucking toy, 84 maybe?
It's like 83, 84.
My mother spent hours standing in line because that's what my sister and I wanted. And by God, we got one that Christmas. And it wasn't long after that, Garbage Pail Kids kind of came to light. And it was a humorous thing. And and then you had your variants. Not really your variants, your name variations. Mm-hmm. But, Atom Bomb being, like one of the most iconic from series 1. And I don't remember what the name variant was, but I'll do searches for them from time to time just to see, like, year over year what some of that stuff goes for. And it's ridiculous. That's also nostalgia for me though too. I mean, that takes me back to, my childhood to see some of those. And it's like, oh, yep, I fucking had that card. I had that card. And I never, early on in my years, I didn't know what taking care of my shit was. I mean, ding corners, creases. It didn't matter to me because I didn't know any better. And so I don't know. There's a part of me that would like to get a few of them just to say I have some. I won't go, first edition type situation because I ain't going to pay that kind of money. But just for the nostalgia, I'd almost be willing to pick some up.
Yeah, if I found like a whatever second, third, fifth edition box somewhere in the 80s time frame, it was like 10, $15, I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
You'd
Just
buy the
because,
what?
huh?
You'd buy the what?
The box, if there's like a box of cards, like the
Oh,
garbage.
yeah. I don't even think you can find them for that cheap.
No, if I stumbled across some.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I'm not gonna go
let's
search on eBay and look for like the '88 Garbage Pail Kids release, which I think I'm in the same boat with you. That first edition, I remember having like that old school desk in my room, and fucking plastering those suckers on there everywhere. It didn't matter. I mean, just go to the Pomida, look at them for a few days, and then bam, right on the desk or on a notebook or on some other piece of paper. Oh, I think if you find any of those in decent condition, that's because that's what pretty much every kid did was affix them on something that shouldn't have been affixed on. A door, a window, a piece of furniture.
So here you go. 1985 Garbage Pail Kids Series 1 graded box. This is a graded box. GAI 9. $49,999.99. Buy it now, best offer. Here's another unopened box. This is from Baseball Card Exchange. So this is first edition. 35 grand. 35 grand.
And those packs were what, like 35 cents, 25 cents a pack.
Oh, they were dirt cheap. Dirt cheap. So yeah, it's like I had to go do a quick search and just see. And that's currently active. I mean, some of the 2013 stuff, because they did the reissue.
Yep.
Of course, in 2013. Some of those sold for ridiculous amounts of money just because of the nostalgia.
And I think they had a chrome variation with like.
That's what they are. Yeah, it's the Garbage Pail Kid Chrome.
Because I think when they came out back then, I looked at some. I'm like, I don't mind picking up a couple just because, again, nostalgia. But once again, you try to go down those roads, and sometimes you just stop yourself because money. God, what am I going to do with them? I mean, it'd be great to have it, but at the same time, you don't even know what to do with some of that stuff. It's not like, okay, atom bombs going up in value, or I don't even remember some of those names, like Dumpster Diana or whatever it would have been. It's not like these are going up, but at the same time, when like what's been talked about with Pokemon and like Magic the Gathering and all those other non-sports entities that have like taken off, they're not getting in any trouble. There's no domestic. They're not charged with rape or battery or murder. You're not going to have that with Charizard or Blastoise or whatever Pikachu. These guys. These are just game cards or whatever that people keep playing because they like the game.
What year Star Wars, Bob? So it looks like a box of Series 1 actually did sell from Baseball Card Exchange. 14 grand or best offer. So best offer was accepted. I could do a search to go see. But here's something crazy. Nasty Nick PSA 10. Now, mind you, this is PWCC, so you know $12,911.22 that card sold for.
I'm sure the pop on that has got to be at under 5, if not 1.
Impossible. Here's a Series 2 box, $28.50 for best offer. I mean, so some of these are not like, it's still crazy that these are stickers.
Mm-hmm.
77. So let me do a quick search, Bob. Just for you, just since you asked.
I've picked up some of those, and again, that was more on the Facebook auctions where I'd see. I'll say it. I don't think I've ever watched a full Star Wars movie. Just the whole concept of it, for me, I like the campier stuff. And when you had so many like these diehard fans, like just take it so seriously, I'm like, I can't get into that. I've picked up some of the more recent cards. I don't even know. I've got some. I think some guy that had a name in the story that was a Q. That's his first name or the initial, first initial. I've got like an autograph sticker to 25. I have no idea who he is. But again, I got it for like $3 or $4 at one of those auction sites on Facebook. But I've picked up like I like more of the Goodwin Champions, like the war hero stuff. If you can pick up like a piece of like a bomber jacket from World War II or a chunk of like the plane inserted into the card, I love learning about World War II, and that's something where I know I could get sucked down that rabbit hole quickly because I've bought in lots with the postmark, and again, this is 10, 11 years ago maybe, like lots of like these the love letters or stuff like that, like the correspondence, and then you have all these other things about World War II, like leaflets that they would send back and forth, just because I think it's such an interesting time in history when you had so much from like so many different countries going on. It wasn't just like one country with the dipshits. You had Germany, obviously, at the forefront, but you still had Russia. Then you bring in the U.S., you bring in England, you bring in all these other countries. It's not just, okay, we're in Iraq, we're in Afghanistan, you're in North Africa, you're in the Pacific theater, you're in Europe, you're in the U.S. to basically start the World War. So, right, that's where I find like anytime you can have the Goodwin champions throwing that stuff in there, I'm always intrigued to at least really take a good long hard look at that stuff because again, you're gonna buy a bomber jacket or whatever it is or a uniform from that era. You're not paying $5 at your local Goodwill. I mean, that's going to be a spendy expenditure. So to get a card for like 10, $15 or a piece of the plane or the aircraft, I'm all about that. That'd be the only, I think, non-sportive stuff I'd collect. I've got some early Marvel, a couple of those inserts out of like clear flare and then like clear ultra. I've got a couple like hologram type cards or whatever and the chromium. But other than that, I really did. None of that stuff has ever appealed to me, even as a kid. I wasn't like I need to go watch like the Batman movie or Justice League or what. I didn't care about that stuff. It was always Mystery Science Theater or campy old horror movies, and then sports, and then music, and then even back then weather. I mean, when we got the Weather Channel in '91. I wanted to learn so much about weather. I'm like, I want to know about what the lowest recorded barometric pressure was, and all this other stuff that no 11-year-old kid could ever care about. But there I was asking these questions.
So, Bob, you're looking at between $2,500 and $3,100 for an unopened box. You'd be better off just buying the error card. Just saying. Just
Yeah,
throwing that out there. I mean, a PSA 8 sold for $250. PSA 9 for $435. So just throwing that out there. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that would be fun as hell to probably open in hopes that you would get one. But that's and that's kind of where we are now in the state of the hobby. You know, it's screw spending that high priced money for busting a box and hoping that you get something that, you know, you like or you get something decent. Screw it. Just go buy the single. Go buy the singles.
Yeah, you don't want to not pull the one card you want and spend that kind of coin.
Have a good one, Joey.
Yeah, Eric has so much. He's like a collector. He really gets into comic stuff. I mean, he's got pretty much anything that he's ever thought, well, you know what? I'll give it a shot and pick up a bunch of stuff. He's got like a lot of that Pokemon stuff that's white hot right now. I don't know about Magic stuff. If he's got that, I wouldn't put it past him because he's got a ton of graded comics. I mean, I know at one point he had the Walking Dead set. Was it graded? I'm not 100% sure. But he was collecting the Walking Dead, I remember 10, 11 years ago, maybe, trying to piece that set together. And that was well before it was on TV, well before it was super popular. So,
Yeah, so for me, Magic came out in 93 with Alpha. And so I graduated high school in 97. I started playing and collecting as a junior. And by then, there was already revised. So I missed Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, Legends, Arabian Nights, and Antiquities. But even at that point in time, you could still find them.
mm-hmm.
Maybe not boxes, but you could find packs. You could find singles. And, you know, being a junior in high school, I wasn't working yet. I never could justify, you know, spending the money because I still always fell back to sports. Oh, yes, I did. I watch open boosters frequently because of the nostalgia, because I never got to open a lot of the old packs. Revised, I opened quite a bit. But, you know, at the same time, when I started working in 97, Magic never came back into my mind. It didn't come back until my mid 20s. I had a complete set of revised, including the dual lands, and I found a guy in England that was selling each color for Arabian Nights. And so I had made those purchases and had a near complete set of Arabian Nights. And I was really focused on some of the early years. I wanted to get the Power 9. I wanted to get an unlimited set. I knew I could probably never afford a beta set, but unlimited was the next best thing. And looking at legends and antiquities and trying to finish out Arabian Nights. And I never did it. I never did it. And I won't say it's a regret because Magic is crazy. At least the early stuff is crazy. I've said this on a previous episode. My near complete set of Arabian Nights, I probably could have sold for damn near close to 15 grand in the current market. I think I got like $800 when I sold it. That was a lot of money at the time. But also during that time, I lost my job, getting a divorce, losing my house. So it was like I needed ways to still be able to pay my bills while I was trying to get my house sold for short sale. So it was one of those in which I still had to pay my bills. I still had, my credit cards. I still had my utilities. I just wasn't paying my mortgage. I had a car payment, car insurance, health insurance, Cobra, that is. Because what a lot of people don't realize, in my later teen years, I was actually diagnosed with a heart condition. I ended up getting strep throat that wasn't diagnosed, and it turned into rheumatic fever, and it attacked my heart. So I had mitral and cardiac valve regurgitation. In English, that would be just leaky valves. And I was diagnosed at 18. And so when I lost my job in my early 20s, I had to carry insurance. I could not be without insurance because pre-existing condition. I was at least fortunate enough to where, and biology is amazing, that my heart actually healed itself. So I was medically cleared in my early 20s, which is a good thing. But at the same time, paying for insurance, Cobra, it was like $800 a month, which was stupid. But like I said, I had to have it because I couldn't afford having something potentially happen later on and being hosed. So a bunch of shit compiled at once. I needed ways to help cover expenses and stuff along those lines. And, in those situations, you have to do what you have to do. I don't regret it. I wish I still had them, though, because nostalgia. I still love the aesthetically pleasing aspect of Magic cards. That'll never change. It's just way out of my wheelhouse. Even some of the newer stuff. It's no different than what they've done with football and basketball and baseball products. They start doing collector's edition boxes and extended foils, specialty cards. There's talks about they're looking at starting to look at serial numbering.
Nope.
And when you start dabbling into stuff, it's not a bad thing. It keeps things fresh, but you have to do it very careful. And, it's one of those in which serial numbering has been a thing in the sports card hobby for a long time. Have they taken it to the extreme? That's debatable. In my opinion, I think that they've taken it to the extreme. But when you look at collectible card games, it was one thing, like from a Pokemon perspective, you had like your base and then you had your hollows.
Mm-hmm.
That was your variations. With Magic, you had just your rarity aspect all the way up until they started doing foils. And then they started doing collector's edition type stuff to where, full art foils, that type of stuff, box toppers, collector's edition boxes, that were $350 and $400 upon release type situation. And now there's discussions about the possibility of doing serial numbers. It's like, if they do it right, then from a collectability aspect, I think it'll actually help that. I think it'll help it. But if they get to the extreme like they do now with the sports card hobby, they'll kill it, because there's going to be a right way and a wrong way. And hopefully they do it the right way, because, maybe later on in life, it sparks a fire, it sparks an interest. And maybe I'll look at, buying some of the newer stuff again at some point. Because I looked at it from an investment perspective. I'm not going to lie. From a single perspective, you got to strike when the iron's hot on some of that stuff. Sealed product, it's a long-term investment. 10 to 15 years, you have to sit on stuff to actually start seeing a return on investment, if not longer. But you got to have the disposable funds. And that's where, when we were talking about in past episodes, investor, flipper, collector, that type of situation. In expanding your portfolio. And so, I don't know.
It'd be nice to sit on the wax, but at the same time, that has to probably be the main thing you collect is unripped wax. Unless you've got a windfall of funds. If you're a fiduciary situation, it's one that you can sit there and buy singles and wax and not rip it. More power to you. Most of us can't, especially with wax. No matter what genre of card, seems like every genre of card, the wax prices are infinitely higher. So yeah, it's one thing to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, I'd love to do that," but guess what? If you're doing that, you have a finite amount of funds to dedicate towards this hobby, you're not going to be able to, or you can, but guess what? You're going to miss out on another aspect of the hobby because you just can't buy it. You can't collect everything.
Well, and when you talk about doing wax too, you're tying those funds up for an extended period of time. So if
you're sitting there and saying, well, okay, I need to sit on this for at least 3 to 5 years. Well, okay, then guess what? The whatever 400 I put into the box, I can't sit there rip it. Well, and again, I have no clue on any Magic the Gathering cards, which ones are the hot ones, or the ones you want to get. But you pull the one you want to get, guess what? You're flipping that for like $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, whatever the case may be. Like, okay, I can immediately transfer those funds back into more wax, more whatever. But with you sitting on it for a longer term, you have to make the choice of like, well, yeah, this will be the purchase instead of rip, flip, rip, flip. Yeah, it just depends on one's feelings about it and what they feel comfortable doing. If you want to take that $400 chance, rip it, not get again, because I don't know how many cards are in a series or a set or whatever it is. I'm guessing it's not going to be you're guaranteed the hot card.
No, and you're not. Night, Bob. From a Magic perspective, 36 packs per boot, 36 packs per booster box. That means you get 36 rares per box. Of those 36 rares, 3 to 4 could be a mythic. So that's the next step up from rare. And then in every product now you have foils. Typically a box, you're only guaranteed 1 foil rare. And that rare could be, in fact, a mythic. But the foil mythic is typically like a case hit. There's 6 boxes per case. Most products, that's not always the case for some, but most products, 6 boxes are in a case. Every once in a while, you can get lucky, of course. I mean, it's no different than if you were to buy a hobby box of football cards. You could blow the odds out of the water. It does happen. But from a sports perspective, typically, if here's your stated odds, usually they're about dead on. I know 2000 contenders was 4 autos per box, but it wasn't uncommon for you to get 5.
Mm.
So well, looks like the Dodgers won it.
Mm.
Cool. I was hoping they'd win it. I mean, they've been so dominant over these last few years, and I'm not disappointed. Not a fan of the Dodgers by any stretch of the imagination, but
I wonder if Pepino would get a ring then. Because he's a groundskeeper dude out there, I think, for the Dodgers.
I don't know how that works.
I guess we will, as they say in the business, wait and see.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of. I'm going to be doing a lot of that, and just like that, the flippers rejoice. Sorry, I've got 2 auctions ending, so sorry.
Well, that's all right. We're closing in on 3 hours.
Yes, we are. But we can give it 7 minutes to see if I'll jump up and down here in a minute. Can you give it 7 minutes, Dave?
I got 7 more minutes in me, and then I got to take some medicine and
Go to bed.
Get to sleep by 11ish would be nice. A little after. Give me at least 5 hours of sleep because I got a good nap in this afternoon. But
did you?
Yeah, the alarm went off. It was like 7:05 or 7:10, and I'm like, oh, I'm struggling.
Well, when you're not feeling good though either, that doesn't help.
No, and then
Well, and last week kicked your ass. I mean, so you had 8, 9. So I know of 9 hours of podcast in 3 days.
No, it was. We had ours. So
I didn't include Stoves. That's the one I didn't know the timing on.
yeah, there was that, and that was
Carlos.
I think with Mark and Bob, I got on there about between like a half hour in and 45 minutes in, and that thing went for 4 hours total.
How long?
4 hours total for that one. So that was like 3.5 I was on there. And then the JT's thing on Sunday, that was about an hour. So I mean, it was
13 hours of podcast, 14 hours of podcast.
and then 50 hours at work. So
Hardest working Amish in the community.
well, that's what Carlos had mentioned. I think I don't even know what video it was, but he's like, I didn't even know you were on that show too, or on that podcast as well. You're the hardest working guy on the YouTube sports card demographic or whatever. And tips hat. I definitely felt it Friday at work. I was just I know I need to my time is very valuable. I must be compensated correctly for said time. Friday though, I was absolutely wiped at work. I mean, I got up and I'm like, this day is gonna be like 4 days put together. I have no ambition, no energy. So yeah, it's for any of these people that are on here or on Twitch or anywhere that go live for even if they do like and I know Carlos has said too, like intermissions. It's like a 10-minute sort of catch your breath, come back type situation. Anybody that does that constantly and consistently, that is kudos to them because it is draining. Not draining in the sense that boy, it's boring or whatever. It's just like you've got to condition yourself to sit there and talk for hours. And
Remember, a lot of them are getting paid to do that.
Yeah,
And that's a driver.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was fun. I mean, I like getting out there and talking. Obviously, I know some of the people that do that stuff that have ulterior motives. I don't. I don't give a shit if I have 1,000 subs. I don't give a shit if I have 10 subscribers, 1,000,000. It does, as long as the people that actually watch my shit, our shit, care about it, and actually you can pick something up from it, then that's what matters. I don't monetization and none of that matters to me. And I don't think it ever will unless I get clunked in the head and something gets screwed up.
Well, one of two. One of two. And these aren't huge cards. But ones that I need. This I mean,
Sort of.
it's the freaking glare, and I don't know why there's so much glare. I'll try again on the inside or when I go inside. I think part of it has to do with the light out here. but 2002 UD graded jersey, numbered to 50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not an ultra rare color by any stretch of the imagination, but
I won it with the minimum bid of $11, probably more than what I. This is one of the listings from the chick in Germany, but one I hadn't seen in a long time, and I knew it was a need. I may have been able to get it cheaper by working out the deal, but I'll support her a little bit more. Got a minute left on the other one. This is the first time I've actually bid on anything while we've been live.
that's what I had to do before I jumped on. I know I had stuff going up, and I had to sort of pick and choose through a couple. Probstein had a handful of brochure cards. Most were in the vein after 0304, but at the same time, there's some cool stuff that was the Fleer Retro. I don't know, would have been 14, 15, 13, 14, or 14, 15. The Skybox Premium Ruby.
Yep.
But he was in the Blues jersey. So he got traded there, I think, right at the end of the career to make that run. I had put money down, bid down. I just couldn't justify going any higher, even if it's so cheap. And I know Vinny had sent me a jambalaya into 08, 09, 09, 10. And I wanted to get it, but it went for like over 100.
Ugh.
And I'm just like, yeah, I'm good without it.
So let's see if this will. So I'll see if this shows up better. And I'm pretty sure I won the other one too. Like I said, nothing major. But another one I needed. Works a little bit better.
The 96.
The holofoil.
Okay. I love those.
I had the regular one, but I didn't have the holofoil. Like I said, nothing huge.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 more gaps to fill. So that's the other one.
Well,
But
yeah,
I got him with the minimum bid. All right, I'll spoil it, Dave, because I know you'll appreciate this. Show the picture.
I
So
love those.
It's up there in the top. Number to 99. Guess the price. Total? Or
Opening
plus
bid.
shipping?
Plus shipping.
But you see why. See the title? Regency Collection. No.
Yeah, nowhere on there says Regency. Ever.
I was pretty happy with that steal. I call that a steal.
Close on the price, too.
You were. Total. Yep. It is. Yep. Row 2.
I wish I would have, again, having serial numbering then. I don't recall there might have been an overall legacy pack pull odd, but I don't remember like, okay, row 2, 1, 3, and 0. I don't remember like, okay, 3s are going to be easier to pull than row 0s. I never. Now, do you see more row 1, 2, and 3 than 0? Most of the time, but still, it's. I wish I would have had some notation or.
Well, yeah, because row zeros as a whole in general were tougher to pull than the 1s, 2s, and 3s.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you fix from a legacy perspective what the chances the pack pull ratio is for 3, 2, 1, and 0 for legacy?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was plus that ended in the middle of the day though too. But the fact that because I was surprised and I happened to just stumble across that. I was doing a normal search and I every once in a while I'll keep it on best match for a while and I'll scroll through and see maybe if I miss something. And that was one of the first couple cars that pulled up and I'm like, I don't remember ever seeing that one. And I knew it was ending today. So of course I pulled it up. I'm like, it's not on the watch list. Yep, add to the watch list. We're gonna watch this. And at first I didn't notice that it had Regency. And I was like, so right before I was about to put in my bid, I noticed that and I'm like, still surprised somebody didn't pick up on that. Because if it pulled up for me on a Terrell Davis search and it always defaults to best match, if there was another TD collector out there, would thought that they would have picked up on that real quick too. But
Well, yeah,
I'm not complaining.
just the picture of it too, and then seeing, okay, it's number 99. Let me take a closer look.
I don't care what they call it in hockey.
The one year they did swear, the 96, 97, their parallel was like the blue ice or whatever it was. It was to 250. There's no legacies or any of that stuff, so that helped. But at the same time, it's like, man, I wish there was some legacy collection for hockey back then. They'd sell super strong now, I imagine, but at the same point, it's like, man, we missed out on so much stuff.
No, you're hearing things, Carlos. Nope. You're hearing things. You weren't here earlier. I appreciate the sport. I watch the sport. I love the Dallas Stars. But no cards.
Yet.
There is no yet, Dave. The only thing that I've talked about hockey related is, and this will be something way down the road, certified auto of the 99 championship Stanley Cup champion Dallas Stars. How many cars did he list, Carlos, and how many of them do you need? That's the question.
And at what point do you message him? And I know you had said, yeah, it's going to cost a ton of money. But and then I know you also think that you don't want to work out like a payment plan. But at the same time, maybe knock some of the ones you haven't seen in eons.
10 years.
Off that list, and then let them list some of the other ones that maybe you've seen a couple times, and then you're like, I'll take my chance on auction. Is that, I guess that's how I try to do it, like Steve's been doing with a couple of the Terrell Davis collections, or the collectors the last, 6 to 8 months. So I'd just be trying to, like, knock off, even if it isn't like a cornerstone card, like an Ultimate Be a Player parallels number to 10. You're not going to find those anymore. People just, it's a different color foil, but it's not like.
Yeah, that's tough, Carlos. And that's what that's what it's been like with this seller in Germany for me. But, they have higher starting bids on some of them that I can't justify that, which may prove to be a detriment in the end. But I don't know if you usually go back and watch the archive. I am in touch with that individual. I did send them my want list, and she's going to look through the collection, and we'll see. It's just going to take some time. So, all of these so far have been starting bids. Some have been reasonable. The holofoil jersey die cut. To me, that was reasonable. I've seen them go as cheap as 99 cents, but a few dollars more. That's reasonable. The game jersey, a little bit higher than what I prefer to pay for a jersey card, but one I haven't seen in quite some time. And it plugs a hole. And I'll get combined shipping. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, at least we'll have a topic for next week.
Yep. We'll have Bob on in the coming weeks. We'll have Vinny on in the coming weeks.
Joey.
I guess we could have Carlos on. And yes, if you want to talk about hockey, you can talk about hockey. That was Vinny's condition. And that's fine. I love the sport. I do. I just can't relate to a lot of the cards. I can to a certain degree because they kind of carry over from the other sports. But I can't speak to it as well as all the rest of you can. We'll call it that. I don't know vintage baseball either. Used to.
I've got a couple cards, but that, again, I feel if I were to buy any of that stuff, and then it'd have to be graded cards, because I just, not that I'm saying that's 100% foolproof, but just in this market, I'd rather buy something that I don't think my eyes would be good enough to catch a fake. I mean, if you could tell by the stock or the material of the cardboard or whatever, one feels like it's from a 2010 Topps baseball card, the others a 55 Topps. You could discern that quality, but at the same time, I don't know, like, okay, certain things I gotta look for, certain whatever aspects of the card. That's the problem too.
Yep.
Buying stuff online, you can't physically hold it.
Yep.
sit there and, oh, you know what?
I mean, let's be real though. Late 80s, early 90s can technically be considered vintage. They meet the qualifications from an antique perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 30 years old. Just saying.
Pre-Reagan vintage.
No, that would be post-Reagan vintage.
That would be, but I'm talking more
Your or the stuff that Carlos is alluding to, 50s, 60s.
The late 80s, early 90s, I would quantify as Berlin Wall vintage. But the 2-hour show that we had planned went for a little over 3, and the Greg Vaughn Future Stars that I tried to send out to have graded came back as unauthentic or altered. So that there went that treasure trove of so. But next week I hope to be not sick. I won't have several shows I've been on. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying it takes a toll on you. And hopefully the weather will be nicer up here, not frozen walking home. Just like when there's ice on the roads already, I don't like that. Because then you got to start walking around different areas. You don't know what lies beneath there, dog shit or sticks and trapdoors or whatever. It's treacherous. And next Tuesday, I mean, there won't be anything going on, so everybody should be coming in here. Nothing in the world will be happening. Nothing. So next week we'll try to get to the hobby burnout, because this week it was like glossed over. I think in that first hour but we didn't even like really dip our toes in the water. So we looked at the water. That was about it. So next week we will get into it, because you see a lot of the guys and gals that are our age that jumped out at some point in time for whatever reason. Yeah, some have returned, but others haven't. And we'll try to navigate those paths and see what information we can share with everyone here, and then whatever feedback we get, we'll go from there. But we'll definitely try to talk about the burnout thing, because it is a big key aspect of this hobby, and especially from the guys when we started on YouTube, a lot of the guys that collected then really don't do much now. Not all of them, but there's a good chunk. So we'll get into that next week. You got anything else to add, Steve, or that it?
Nope. Trying to avoid going down another rabbit hole. So
I agree. I'm in that same conundrum. I might look tired. I don't know.
You look beat, man.
So with that, he's Steve. I'm Dave. This is the Insert Revolution podcast, signing off. And remember, building collection is great. Building the friendships, that's what this hobby should be about. And thanks for watching, everybody. Good night.
Good night, guys.